Hello, and welcome to the SAF Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Anna Simet, and you have tuned in to our panel preview series for the North American SAF Conference and Expo, which will highlight speakers from the show, which is being held in Minneapolis, September 22nd through the 24th. So for these, we'll be chatting with some of our panelists and previewing what they plan to discuss during their panel discussions. And today, we have the pleasure of having with us Gord Crawford from Expander Energy. Gord, hello, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
We're so happy to have you. Before we begin or get into the details of your presentation, Gord, how about we start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and Expander Energy in general?
Sure. My name's Gord Crawford. I'm President and CEO of Expander Energy. Expander Energy is a Canadian company that has developed a suite of technology that convert biomass, renewable electricity, and captured carbon into things like renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel, which of course is what we're here to talk about today.
How long have you been around for, Gord?
Expander's been around for about 15 years. I joined about 5 years ago. The company had developed several technologies for the production of synthetic fuels, including sustainable aviation fuel. And I came along to give them a little bit of a hand, taking technology and moving it into a commercially durable product.
Okay. So Expander has developed several processes to economically turn wood waste, ag residue, other biomass into low carbon intensity SAF and renewable diesel. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So Expander uses a number of technologies, including biomass gasification and steam methane reforming, electrolysis of water, and Fischer-Tropsch conversion being the main process elements. Most of our products and our technologies are underpinned by a biomass gasifier that was originally developed in the Czech Republic. It was used for biomass to power, producing grid power and waste energy for district heating. A total of 8 units were operated over 5 years under EU certification conditions. And it's that gasifier that we are now moving into production in our synthetic fuels facilities to convert things like woody biomass into hydrogen and carbon monoxide. That hydrogen and carbon monoxide we then convert into paraffin liquid, using a Fischer-Tropsch process, a cobalt-based catalyst.
Really interesting. So during your presentation, you're going to provide an update on a couple of biomass to SAF and renewable diesel projects. Can you give us some of the details about those?
Sure. Yeah, we have a few different pathways that we're following. 2 primary technologies that we're commercializing at this point. One of them utilizes steam methane reformers to generate the supplemental hydrogen that's required for the process. Another technology uses electrolysis or high temperature steam electrolysis as the hydrogen source. The first of those 2 technologies, we are actually right now in the process of constructing a facility outside of Calgary. It is an expansion of an existing synthetic fuels facility, a gas to liquids facility that was constructed by a company called Rocky Mountain Clean Fuels 2 years ago. It's been in operation ever since. And Expander just recently announced a binding letter of intent with that company to acquire that site and to stand up a joint venture called Wheatland Biosynfuels, Inc. That company will raise the funding to convert that synthetic fuels facility into a biosynthetic fuels facility, which will produce renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel. The other pathway to development is through a co-development and co-patenting agreement that Expander has with Canadian Nuclear Labs. Canadian Nuclear Labs is a division of Atomic Energy of Canada, the Government of Canada's nuclear development department. And we are developing a e-fuels technology with Canadian Nuclear in which we use biomass-based carbon plus electrolysis-derived hydrogen to once again produce the hydrogen and CO required for Fischer-Tropsch conversion, and we would then from that make a Fischer-Tropsch synthetic paraffinic kerosene, an FTSPK, as sustainable aviation fuel.
Okay, thank you. So, Gord, you're focused on locating, your projects are in Canada. Tell us a little bit about what's appealing for these locations that you've chosen, and any thoughts on expanding outside of Canada?
Well, the simple reason we're developing these projects in Canada is that's where we are. Mm-hmm. The facility the Carsland facility that we will be further developing and producing some of our first sustainable aviation fuel is 40 kilometers from where I'm sitting. This is where myself, my board of directors, and the stakeholders in Expander have been doing business throughout most of our careers. So this is home. And Home Advantage has its privileges. We understand the business, we understand the regulatory structure, so we can develop these first-of-a-kind projects at comparatively low risk because we've been doing business in this environment through our previous companies, which included one of the largest energy engineering companies in Canada, and in a regulatory environment that we're very, very comfortable with. The subsequent projects in Canada, there's a few in Alberta, there's one in British Columbia, there's one in Ontario, and there's one in Quebec. The reason those projects were chosen were the electrolysis-based technology was supported by the Canadian government, so Canadian locations were preferred for that rollout. However, we've seen great interest from both American locations as well as locations overseas in Asia, South America, Africa. And so we fully expect once this first commercial installation is up and running outside of Calgary that we will be looking at using that facility as a cookie cutter for similar facilities all around the world, including the US.
Great answer. So, Gord, what are you hoping attendees will walk away with after your presentation? And then who are you hoping to connect with at the conference?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, yeah, no, I hope that as a result of the presentation that we're providing, that the audience leaves with a better understanding of how sustainable aviation fuel is manufactured, specifically the gasification to FT pathway. Almost all sustainable aviation fuel on the market right now is derived from either used cooking oil or tallow or seed oils like canola or soybean oil. Those first generation feedstocks are limited, and it's not my area of expertise, but my understanding is the availability economically of those feedstock is starting to plateau. Second generation feedstocks like cellulose, which is the feedstock that we use for our fuel, is largely untapped. And so our unit cost per liter of fuel or unit cost per kilo of fuel is maybe 20% that of the unit cost of feedstock for an HDRD or HEFA type of liquid distillate. So I'm hopeful that the audience gets a better understanding of the sort of next step evolution of sustainable aviation fuel out of the limited HEFA market into a larger and more sustainable cellulosic feedstock source.
Okay, and we will have a Q&A at the end too, so attendees can ask questions and interact, so it's a great deal. Gord, anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I was privileged to attend the last year's North American SAF conference. It was very well attended. I really enjoyed myself. Great people, lots of great conversations. So I'm really looking forward to going to Minneapolis this year.
It's going to be a good one. And we sure appreciate you saying that. And I sure appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking with me.
You're very welcome.
And to our listeners, learn more or register at safconference.com. Hope to see you at the Minneapolis Convention Center September 22nd through the 24th. Thanks for listening. Until next time.